Hi, I'm Anna, and welcome to the Sompo Deep Cut. South Africa is a place of contradictions. Ancient geology and young vineyards, scorching summers and icy ocean currents, high tech winemaking, and bush wines older than democracy itself. It's a country where the landscape can change dramatically within a half hour drive, and where style is shaped as much by wind and coastline as it is by grape and soil. If there is one key to understanding South Africa, it is this: everything begins with the oceans and the winds. To the southwest lies the cold Benguela Current, surging up from the Antarctic along the Atlantic coast. It cools the air, thickens fog, lowers temperatures, and creates that unmistakable maritime snap in coastal Sauvignon Blancs. From the southeast, False Bay funnels cooler air deep inland, pushing breezes all the way into Stellenbosch's mountain amphitheaters on warm summer afternoons, and cutting across all of it, the Cape Doctor, South Africa's notoriously southeasterly wind, arrives with force, clearing disease pressure, drying canopies, cooling wines, and occasionally battering them into submission. These winds aren't background color, they are climate, they are style. They are the reason South African wines have a kind of brightness and energy that distinguishes them from many New World peers. Let's begin in Stellenbosch, because in the Diploma text, it stands at the center of everything. The district sits wrapped by mountains on three sides, and each corner tells its own climate story. Cooler pockets face False Bay, where afternoon breezes slip through the Helderberg and ride up the slopes, shaping Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, and more recently Cabernet Franc. Warmer inland valleys, Helderberg, Simonsburg, Stellenbosch, are home to the country's most pedigreed Cabernet Sauvignon and Bordeaux style blends. The soils shift between decomposed granite, sandstone, shale, and clay, each affecting water retention and vine vigor. Vineyards run from valley floor warmth to elevated slopes that slow ripening and thicken skins. This is why Stellenbosch styles vary so widely. Maritime freshness in the southern parts, structure, concentration, and age worthiness in the mountain wards, plush fruit from warmer interior pockets. It is a district of microclimates, and understanding those microclimates is the key to answering any premium wine question about South Africa. Travel over the mountains and you reach Swartland, a region whose reputation has completely transformed in the last 2 decades. Originally geared toward high volume wheat and wine production, Swartland is now the spiritual home of low intervention old wine winemaking. Dry farmed bush wines, some over 40, 60, even 100 years old, grow on granite, shale, and schist. Rainfall is low, summers are hot, irrigation hardly exists, which means the wines here have to speak from concentration, not from canopy manipulation or technology. Chenin Blanc from Swartland is textured, savory, often smoky or mineral. Red blends built on Syrah, Grenache, and Mourvedre are expressive, layered, and built for complexity rather than polish. In the exam, Swartland is shorthand for old wines, low rainfall, dry farming, low intervention, premium boutique producers, and a region responsible for reshaping global perceptions of South African wine quality. Further inland sits Paarl, warm and largely shielded from maritime influence. Its styles are generous: rich Chenin, ripe Cabernet, full bodied Shiraz, moving towards the Simonsburg ward, and you find more structured Bordeaux varieties. Mediterranean varieties also do well here. Historically, Paarl was the center of KWE's power and still hosts many of South Africa's biggest players. But boutique producers are pushing stylistic diversity into increasingly cooler foothill sites. Southeast into Franschhoek, nestled in a narrow valley where mountains trap heat but cool evening air drains down slopes. It is one of the oldest planted areas in the Cape. Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon still hold a signature role here, often blended into age worthy whites that carry waxy texture, lanolin, citrus, and herbal notes. The district produces red wines too: Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Syrah, but its strongest identity remains its white blends. Follow the curve of the mountains back towards the city, and you reach Cape Town's cooler coastal districts. Constantia, Durbanville, and others grouped under the Cape Town WO. These places live and breathe maritime influence. Constantia, with its decomposed granite soils and aspect towards False Bay, produces Sauvignon Blanc with piercing acidity and benchmark purity. Durbanville, facing the cold Atlantic and the Benguela Current, grows Sauvignon that is herbaceous, mineral, elegant. Chardonnay and red Bordeaux varieties also thrive on warmer north facing slopes. These regions show how dramatically the coastline shapes style. A few kilometers from cold ocean winds can create Sauvignon Blanc as vivid as anything in the Loire. Head east along the coast, and the climate cools even further. In Walker Bay, and particularly in the Hemelenard wards, ocean moderation and altitude converge. This is South Africa's Burgundy zone. Pinot Noir and Chardonnay are the heart of production here. The wines defined by acidity, restrained, gentle oak, and layers of red fruit, citrus, or whetstone minerality depending on altitude and soil. The area is cooler because the coastal mountains open just enough to let the sea breathe inland. Vineyards climb slopes that catch the morning sun but lose heat quickly in the afternoon breeze. If you ever need to explain cool climate South Africa in a theory exam, Hemelenard is your anchor. Back inland, the Breed River Valley unfolds. Worcester, Robertson, Breedeclough, a vast, warm, dry, fertile expanse. Mechanization is possible here. Unlike the steep coastal vineyards, irrigation is common and yields are high. But within this broad valley sit pockets of quality. Robertson's limestone rich soils produce Chardonnay with definition and form, and the district is a major center for traditional method sparkling wine. Shiraz and Cabernet also do well in warmer areas, and Colombard remains vital for brandy. North of here, the vineyards of Olifants River stretch toward the desert. This is one of South Africa's largest volume regions, dependent on irrigation canals that bring water down from the Cederberg Mountains. Mechanized vineyards and high yields dominate, though hillside pockets and altitude in the Cederberg yield fresher, more intense wines. Colombard and Chenin thrive at scale, supplying both the domestic market and export blends. And then, far from the coast, the Klein Karoo sits in a semi arid interior corridor producing fortified wines, sweet late harvest styles, and robust reds. The landscape is hot and dry, vineyards scattered across valleys that rely on altitude or river water to survive. Across all these regions, certain grapes tie the country together. Chenin Blanc remains the single most planted variety, grown at every level of quality, from inexpensive high volume wines made in stainless steel with a touch of residual sugar, to old wine naturally fermented barrel aged examples capable of extraordinary depth. Its versatility is its power. Dry, off dry, sparkling, sweet, Chenin can do everything. Sauvignon Blanc is the Cape's second pulse, especially in the cooler maritime zones. Its style varies from herbaceous and high acid near the Atlantic to more tropical when grown inland or in warmer pockets of Stellenbosch. It is often fermented cool, protected from oxygen, sometimes aged on lees for texture. And of course, Pinotage, South Africa's own crossing, occupies both pride and controversy. At its simplest, Pinotage can be fruity, jammy, brambly. But in the hands of premium producers, its modern expression is very different. Restrained, structured, sometimes smoky or spicy, fermented with gentle extraction, matured in larger or older oak, and increasingly made with elegance as the target rather than power. The Diploma loves asking about Pinotage because it embodies the evolution of South African wine, from rustic burnt rubber stereotypes to refined site driven bottlings. The backbone of red wine, however, excuse me, remains Cabernet Sauvignon and Syrah. Cabernet leads in Stellenbosch and Paarl, creating blends that balance New World fruit with Old World structure. Syrah thrives in Swartland and coastal districts, showing pepper, violets, or saline minerality depending on site. And behind all of this sits a business structure shaped by the legacy of the KWV, which once controlled all buying, selling, pricing, and exports. Deregulation in the 1990s shattered that system, opening the door to estate bottling, private exports, and a rise in boutique production. Wine of Origin, the WO scheme, offers a geographic hierarchy from geographical unit to region, district, and ward. It isn't a European style quality ladder, it is simply a system of place. Estate wine and single vineyard designations add clarity in a market still balancing large cooperatives with artisanal producers. South Africa exports a high percentage of its wine, with the UK, Germany, and the US as its largest markets. Bulk wine exports remain significant, keeping average export prices low and squeezing margins for many producers. Yet at the same time, South Africa is the world's largest producer of fair trade wine, and sustainability schemes like IPW, WIETA, and Sustainable Wine South Africa that appear in the diploma text, not as marketing fluff, but as meaningful industry pillars. They address issues of environmental stewardship, worker welfare, land use, and traceability, all themes that could surface easily in a theory question. This is the heart of South Africa, a country where winds shape fruit, where altitude and ocean define style, where old wines cling to ancient soils, and where the industry's evolution mirrors the country's broader path towards openness, identity, and self definition. It is a place that cannot be understood through climate charts alone. You have to imagine the physicality of it. The Cape Doctor roaring across a vineyard, a mountain shadow falling across the vines in late afternoon, fog sliding up False Bay, basalt and granite baking in summer heat, and a culture of winemakers who are increasingly letting their landscapes speak. As always, you'll find the full companion article linked to this episode. I do hope you enjoyed listening, and I'll see you in the next Deep Cut.